Hello, I am Ryan F9, but this isn't going to be a first impression. Well, it's more like 101st impression or 1,000st impression or I don't know, something like that, because this is my motorcycle. It's not a press bike, it's not a loaner, this is mine. It's a 2015 V-Strom 1000. That's what I spend sort of most of my time on. To look at, I don't know, not much. To be honest, I actually dislike the way this bike looks. I think it looks a little bit dopey. Kind of like a big, stupid, kind of like a big, stupid red dog or something. I don't know. Suzuki did this big redesign in 2014. They lightened up the aluminum frame and made it stiffer, quicker to turn in. They bored out the engine to 1037 cc's. They threw a slipper clutch on it. All good stuff, but they also changed the looks. And so they added this beak to kind of, I don't know, fit in with the ugly ducklings at BMW or whatever. But I think this looks a bit dumb. I think because with the big round headlight above the beak, it's kind of gaping. And it has this sort of, this windscreen is adjustable, by the way. It's one of the only ones that actually prevents buffeting on a 6'3" guy like myself. So the screen is amazing, but it kind of looks like a cowlick or something. I don't know, the whole thing, the face comes together kind of looking surprised and scared and I don't know, not super attractive, not super courageous maybe. The headlight's super good though. This lights up the road frickin' amazing. Anyway, not super attractive up front, not super attractive in the back either. I mean, the seat is really wide, really comfortable, but it's sort of slung low, 33.5 inches. So it's sort of hung down, it's kind of pudgy, and the belly hangs really low. I mean, this down here, this is, at stock, it's 6.5 inches of ground clearance, but I threw the skid plate on there, so it's probably even less. I mean, it really kind of hangs down. So it's kind of, I don't know, I think it looks a bit pudgy, a bit chunky, and a bit kind of, I don't know, oafish or something like that. But anyway, it's my bike, so I have learned to love it. And now I'm going to tell you about it. Let's start with the way it rides. Okie doke. Let's go this way. Alright, so number one thing you'll notice in terms of getting this bike going is that, I mean, first off, it's a V-twin, and it's a really zesty and peppy one at that. It's got a really exciting power delivery, but you also feel every pop and pull of the engine. It's, it's very vibrational. It has a lot of flavor in that sense. Some people like it, some people don't. I think it's pretty exciting, so I don't mind that. It's not a fast bike, despite boring it out, the Suzuki geeks only found like 99 horsepower in there. So it doesn't have a lot of top end, but what it does have is a lot of down low. The torque curve is really fat, and it's really low. So down here below 4,000, 5,000 RPM, and that's where it really grunts. You'll get the better part of 76 foot-pounds of torque below that point. So it really kind of pulls down low, and I like that about it. Makes it pretty exciting to get off the line. And a lot of people who watch my videos are like, "Hey, why don't you ever rev this bike out?" And it's because there's not much going on at the top end, but down low it's fun. So it gets going okay. Not a super fast adventure bike, not a super slow one either, but it gets going okay. Where it really shines is here in these corners. It wears radials off the factory line. They love to sink their teeth into a corner, and the suspension is pretty tight. Like I said already, the aluminum frame has been tightened up. Makes it really quick, lightning quick to turn in. It wears 17-inch, 19-inch wheels, and so those are pretty road oriented. They're pretty quick to turn in there as well. So really, really good in a corner. A corner is pretty much better than any ATV bike I've ridden. I'm not just saying that because this is mine. It really is very good in the corners. It's better than a machine this size really should be. So I like that about it. The other thing I love is how it stops, right? So this is pretty much one finger braking here. You know, it's really touchy. This bike has a really strong initial bite, and the feedback is really good, and it slows itself down in a big hurry. I mean, I could rattle on about the twin 310mm discs, the Tokiko monoblock calipers, 4 pistons in each, whatever, but that's not really gonna explain to you just how this feels. It's really just exceptional on the brakes. And again, I'm not saying that because it's mine. It is actually that good. This bike kind of spoiled me for a lot of bikes when it comes to braking power. You know, I've had a lot of sport bikes that I've ridden that have disappointed me because the brakes on this V-Strom stop really well. So I like that about it. Let's go over here. Okay, so off-road. We're going to talk about that in a minute. As I was saying, good on the brakes. Touring is where it kind of starts to fall behind. I mean, it's a very comfortable touring bike. I love touring on it. But Suzuki made a couple blunders. One, you know, there's no cruise control, and that's a bit silly for a bike like this. The other thing is the tank. The tank is just too small. 20 liters, this thing guzzles gas. It runs out super quick. Not my favorite touring machine as far as ATV bikes go. Now we're going to ride it off-road. So why have I gotten off the bike and stopped? Well, that's because I've obviously done some shit to it. First off, knobby tires, aftermarket. They're bias plies, by the way, but the bike plays really well with them. And then we have engine bars and a skid plate. And I also put a radiator guard in here to prevent that from getting chunked open. That's literally all I've done to it. You can tweak the suspension for off-road too and get it pretty good, but I left it set up for the street now, just so you can see kind of how it handles like that. So you have to do that to get this thing ready off-road. It's the most on-road biased ATV bike. It's not a very good off-road ATV bike off the factory line, and even now with all the mods. I'm not going to lie to you. Yes, I'd be better off on a Tiger, on a Super 10. I'd be better off on an Africa Twin by a long shot. I'd be better off on most BMWs, F800 GS for sure. I would take this over the 12 GS though, but anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's ride it off-road. Ooh, one thing I forgot to do, traction control off. Because the traction control on this thing, is really inhibitive. You know, I mean, you can rip this thing off-road, whoa, and get it sideways just like that, but you need the TC off, because on TC 1 or 2, it just won't let you do anything. So the rider aid there, not very well set up for off-road. It's a totally different story with the ABS though. And the ABS on this bike is one of the best systems I know for riding off-road. It really slows it down in a hurry. I've ridden a lot of ATV bikes, and the ABS on the V-Strom is actually better off-road than most. Let's go up that actually. That's kind of a gnarlier looking hill over here. Let's see if I can spin this thing around. Ugh. Yes, okay. Ooh. So that's the other thing I love about this bike in terms of off-roading. You know, it's not set up brilliantly for off-roading with the 19-inch front wheel and with the super low ground clearance, but it's really lightweight, 503 pounds. Makes it lighter than most ATV bikes. And it's very narrow between the legs. And so that means it's actually pretty easy to handle off-road. You know, rocky stuff like this, kind of gnarlier terrain, it's comfortable. It can do it, you know? I'm always being careful because I know that 19-inch front wheel isn't going to roll over stuff very well. And I know that if I go over anything, I mean, with the skid plate on there, my ground clearance is down to about 6 inches. So I got to be careful what I go over. But I mean, to be honest, if you got the skill, you can get this thing up pretty much anything that any other adventure bike will do. It's not as happy doing it as most adventure bikes, but it will do it. Like this, right? This is kind of a gnarly sandy hill. Oh, and it made it over. That's kind of always been my experience with this bike. Again, I'm not gonna lie to you and pretend that it's amazing off-road. It's not. But I always run out of skill before this bike runs out of ability. You know, it'll go pretty much anywhere that I'm comfortable going. So that's pretty good. I mean, this right now, you know, this is kind of grassy in here, and well, it's not much of a trail at all, really. It's just kind of grassy. But the ABS is just no problem slowing the bike down coming down this. I can just lean on that back brake and it'll bring it to a stop. So, yeah, that's really impressive. I like that about it. Ugh. All right. Oh! And I mean, with that torque down low too, it just gets so bent out of shape every time you hit the gas, which I like about it too. It's just fun. Okay. So that's it. Now that's my V-Strom 1000. I promise you that I'm gonna try to be less biased during the full review next week. I'm gonna tell you more things that I actually dislike about the motorcycle. And in case you were wondering where I was riding today, that's where.